Joining us now is Sai Deepak, lawyer, and let me ask you on the Chidambaram temple, where do you stand? Because this has been an issue for a while with this temple. It's done the rounds of the Supreme Court. There's a Supreme Court judgment that protects the rights of the Dikshitars. But it's back in focus this time again, and it's the HRNC department, the state, that has now taken up the cudgel, saying there is gross mismanagement. How do you read the situation, Sai?
So, if there is a textbook instance of what is wrong with state control of Hindu religious institutions, despite a clear verdict from the Supreme Court, the highest constitutional court of the land, in the context of a denominational institution that enjoys rights under Article 26, which is perhaps the strongest of rights that a religious institution can get under the Constitution, this is that example. Okay? What can a politically motivated, an anti-Hindu, anti-Brahmin government do, despite the verdict of the Supreme Court? If there is a clear-cut example that people want to look at, here's the case study with the DMK in power in the Tamil Nadu state. So let me explain this. This fight started way back in the pre-constitution period. Okay, with Shirur Mutt from South Canada, of what is known as Karnataka today, and Chidambaram temple jointly challenging the 1927 HRC legislation of the then Madras presidency. Okay, because notifications were issued for takeover of these institutions. Okay, and this was done in so this was with respect to the 1927 notification. Subsequently, in 1950, our constitution comes into force. By 1951, a new legislation has come about, okay, which is the previous HRC legislation prior to the one which is currently in force, which came into existence in 1959. Okay, that legislation is challenged before the Supreme Court, and in that particular judgment, which is known as the famous Shirur Mutt judgment of the Supreme Court, the court categorically holds what are the metes and bounds and circumstances in which the state can step into the picture, but never to take over any institution. You can just take it over for very limited purposes to set the house in order and get out of the picture. Okay, that is when the saga began for this particular temple. But then comes the 1959 Act, which reproduces in sum and substance the very same provisions which were struck down by the Supreme Court in 1951. And under that legislation, executive officers are appointed one way or the other without any reason, and in most instances the Tamil Nadu government, regardless of who has been in power, has never given clear reasons as to why a particular temple needs to be taken over, which is among the first reasons required, or one of the first requirements under administrative law. So for instance, if it is a non-state private property and the state wants to step into that particular picture, it has to say, I am doing so under this power. I'm doing so because there is a specific circumstance that warrants it. I want to do so to achieve a particular end, and I will finish this in a certain time period. None of these things have ever been satisfied by the Tamil Nadu HRC government. Okay, all this litigation ultimately comes to a head, and on 6th of January 2014, in the judgment known as Subramania Swamy versus so-and-so, the Supreme Court comes out with a very clear verdict saying, this is a denominational institution. You cannot supersede or take over control in the name of setting the house in order. And this is what you've been doing. So please vacate the picture, get out of the picture. This happens in 2014. Please note, one of the things that the Supreme Court notes in the judgment is, you were supposed to come out with specific rules since 1959 to show what are the circumstances in which executive officers can be appointed. Can you guess when the rules actually were notified? November 2015, after the Supreme Court's verdict of 2014. Today you're in 2023, and those who've been following what's been happening with the Chidambaram temple over the last 7 years will tell you, state governments have tried to, if I would say, extract revenge from this temple for having succeeded in the Supreme Court. And therefore repeated attacks have been made one way or the other, either mischievously invoking the SC/ST Act, or suddenly saying that there's a child marriage that has apparently happened in the family of a priest of that particular temple, and therefore that somehow gives the justification for the state government to step into the picture. Please tell me, if something happens in the priest's family, what right does it give the state with respect to the temple? Assuming that this has even happened. So these are the kind of things that have happened. The latest instance is a clear continuum of this particular motivated action. All that has happened is this. There is a particular platform in the temple. And the Podu Dikshitars, for those people who don't understand who are Podu Dikshitars, these are the traditional archakas or priests of that particular temple who have been given power. They have said for these 4 days, when the crowds are unmanageable and there is a particular festival going on, we do not want people to step on this particular platform regardless of their caste, because it makes it difficult for us to manage crowds. This was the legitimate, simple intention behind that instruction. No particular caste was singled out and no particular caste was given a free pass or an exemption from this rule. Now apparently caste is in the picture, social justice is in the picture, SC/ST Act is in the picture, all sorts of things are in the picture, and in full public glare, the police steps into the temple. In which religious institution of any other community can the police dare to step in full public glare with the media watching? So according to me, this is proof of the fundamentally anti-Hindu nature of HRC legislations across the country.
So what's the break? How do we break this, or what is the solution to this? Because you're the second person after Professor Gurumurthy to say it's not just anti-Hindu, it's also anti-Brahmin.
Correct.
His point was that this Chidambaram temple is also being targeted because it's run by Dikshitars.
Correct.
And it still remains the last bastion of a Brahminical institution managed on its own in Tamil Nadu.
Correct. See, the thing is, unfortunately, there is a history of anti-Brahminism thanks to Dravidianism, which itself, according to me, is foisted, supported, nourished and watered by external actors. And that's been the history right from the beginning. It was propped up as a counter to what was seen as Brahminical Congress by the then Madras government. Okay, and there are instances where the leaders of the so-called movement, if at all it can be called one with any degree of conscience, went to London asking the British government to stay back because they did not want independence. They wanted to be stooges of the British, and they are the ones who are accusing everybody else of being stooges of the British today, unfortunately. So one, there is a very clear history. Thanks to that movement, there was a massive exodus of the Brahmin population from Tamil Nadu. While most people speak of the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, because that's more bloody, or rather it's bloodier, it's visceral and it's clear, people don't speak of the exodus, the forced exodus of Tamil Brahmins from Tamil Nadu thanks to this movement. The fact of the matter is, the common people of Tamil Nadu are not anti-Brahmin. And you can see this in most hinterland, let's say, districts or in the interior parts of Tamil Nadu. It is in political spaces that this anti-Brahminism rears its ugly head. And allow me to say this, and I'm a very clear believer of this, that anti-Brahminism is perhaps a precursor to anti-Hinduism, not perhaps, surely a precursor to anti-Hinduism. That's been the history of it. Because they want to strike at the core of the Vedic religion, and therefore Brahmins and Brahminism is what they're after. So that's one. Two, what does this mean? You're looking at a population that's less than 2% or 2.5%. That's the definition of a minority. Some other groups with 30%, 27% get away with tags of minority. These are actually the true minorities. Where do you find the Tamil Brahmin population today? Pune, Chembur, Bangalore, Mysore, Aurangabad. These are the parts of the country where they fled. Hyderabad and other places. Okay, this is what happened. Now, coupled with that, when you increase the reservation to 69% above the constitutional limit to 50%, what are you effectively telling people? Get out of the place. That's what they did. Okay. Now, when this community is targeted, who is going to stand up for them? Fortunately, I would say in the last few years, one name has certainly surfaced, which despite not being a Brahmin, understands the realities of what is happening and has started speaking in favor of the community and has started speaking against the anti-Brahmin slant of Dravidianism. That's Annamalai. Having said that, let me also say this. Annamalai's position may not necessarily be the entire position of the BJP across the board. Because the fact of the matter is, the BJP said in Karnataka that it would relinquish control over temples. And this was made as a public statement and they backed out from it. Okay. Then in Uttarakhand, they took control of temples, close to 51 temples. They would not have given it up because the Uttarakhand High Court actually gave them a seal of approval subsequently. This was challenged in the Supreme Court. Before the Supreme Court could actually rule on this particular matter, fortunately, Uttarakhand elections came about. And because 20% of the population of Uttarakhand, or at least a significant population, is a Brahmin population, they said, I'm sorry, this is not going to happen. Then they gave up control. So it's a question of muscle at the end of the day, political muscle and electoral muscle. Constitutionalism in this country rarely works in favor of those communities who don't have political or electoral muscle. That's the fact of the matter, whether it comes to reservations or any other issue. Brahmins from Tamil Nadu are a micro-minority. Most of them have gone to California. Now caste has come back to revisit them in California in a very different way, thanks to Californian resolutions, SB 403 and whatnot. 403. Right? So the more you try to run away from a problem, it grows in size. It's time we realize that, and we stopped, turned around, and gave it the fight that it calls for.
Now, my final question on this one, because and how does this matter proceed? Because there is only a legal solution to it. Politically, there is no solution right now. The legal solution has to be in the top court of the country, because the Supreme Court passed the ruling in 2014, and what is happening is in gross violation, as you said,
correct,
of the court orders. So, who takes this story forward to the Supreme Court?
So
are you willing to represent it?
Of course, and I'm certainly in communication with the people who represent their interests on the ground. I will certainly bat for this community no matter what, no matter how politically incorrect it gets. I have embraced all sorts of labels and certificates that have come my way, so I have no problems whatsoever. I'm past caring for any of these. I don't give up on the political aspect for one or two reasons. You know this, Anand, that over the last 5 to 6 years, temple control and relinquishment of state control over temples has gained traction like never before. So this is no more an issue with respect to Tamil Nadu. This is an issue that applies across the board, regardless of who's in power. I don't think any party in this country can actually say confidently that it has done justice to Hindus when it comes to this particular issue. I'm being very clear. On this issue, no party is a different party. There is no party with a difference on the subject. Okay. Now, two, there's a lot more chatter on social media. There's a lot more chatter on the ground, because you see, Hindus in Andhra Pradesh know that the very same fate awaits them if they keep quiet, thanks to the rapid Christianization of that particular state. And if the statement made by one particular minister of Andhra Pradesh were to be gone by, according to him, 25% of the state is converted to Christianity, right? So with all that, I don't think Tamil Nadu is about Tamil Nadu, it is about the country. Okay? And considering it's a state with close to 40,000 temples and one of the last standing bastions of Hindu civilization in every possible way, physical, spiritual, and whatnot, I think that is the battleground. And I'm not someone who's going to go down without a fight. I'm not going to let Tamil Nadu go the Kerala way under any circumstances. This is something that needs resistance. It will be given political resistance, it will be given ground resistance, and it will also be given legal resistance, constitutional resistance. See, DMK constantly says we'll take over. What are you going to take it over for? Since 2014, you have not even filed a review petition before the Supreme Court explaining what is your grievance with the Supreme Court's verdict. As long as that verdict stands, you dare not step into the picture creating any kind of mischievous reasons. This is a mischievous reason.
But the law and order is with the state. Running of the temples is a state issue, and the state right now is in the control of those who you believe are wanting to take control of the temple. So, and the top court has not taken any suo motu cognizance yet, although many would say that it jumps to take notice on other issues, but in this issue it has not.
So let me say this. Those who tried to play with the Sabarimala temple were scared of the political consequences, and they were forced to change their position in court. Okay, and this is hardcore left, CPIM. Okay, and there's a saying in Tamil, which is, if you touch Shiva's property, it will lead to destruction of your lineage. That is our belief as Saivites, and I'm a proud Saivite. So I dare you to touch this property again, and let's see if the law of karma doesn't set itself in action.
We'll also wait and watch how it unfolds, and whether the wrath of Shiva unfolds or the rule of law unfolds. Either ways, it has to be for the benefit of all, because the Constitution provides equality for everyone and the same right to protect and practice their culture under Article 29 that others talk about.
If the rule of law runs counter to Shiva's wish and also his own interest, it is not rule of law, it is injustice and adharma.
Well said, Sai Deepak. Thank you very, very much for your time. Great conversation as always. Thank you.